Hi, I'm Aura, but I'm not the only one up here, as you can see. And I'm the host of Collective Mind, and we have some system updates for you. We have talked some about what was going on with Jayden, and especially with Josh's Meet the Altars video and things like that. But we have more of an update on that now, and I'm not sure if we've referenced Joseph's split in any way before this, but I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that as well, and with that, introducing Raven a little bit. I don't know if he will do his own Meet the Altars, I guess we'll see, but in terms of the update, I'll do the basics and stuff here. I think I'm actually going to start with Joseph's split because it is faster and easier, and you know less about it already. So, Joseph had a Meet the Altars video, a shared one that he did with Virgil. And you can go watch that for reminders of who Joseph was. But Joseph had split a while ago now, before we moved, for sure. I think after we knew something was going on with Jayden, but before I met Josh. But a while ago now. And I knew next to nothing about the split except that it happened for a very long time. I still know very, very little about anyone resulting from the split except Raven. I think there might be a trauma holder who might still use the name Joseph, but I know basically nothing about them, and even that I'm not sure that that's accurate. But Raven I have known for a little bit now, and he has been choosing not to introduce himself on the channel or anything until now, but has consented now to being a part of this update. So before an earlier split, there was a version of Joseph that was never on the channel before the channel existed, who was a co-host and an emotional protector. And Raven now seems to be aligning more with those roles than the version of Joseph essentially that you have met on the channel. He is around the front a lot more generally. He doesn't front for as long of periods of time as I remember Joseph used to, but a lot more frequently and in more of like a protective way and less of a strictly trauma holder way than Joseph had been more recently. Like the version of Joseph that you would have met on the channel, in terms of how he related to the front, was primarily a trauma holder. He was also a caretaker and things inside, but he was only ever really around the front if triggered, and not really as a protector, really just as a trauma holder. Raven does more of the emotional protecting now that old Joseph used to, including helping a lot with things like panic attacks. He is better at pushing through things like that than I and a lot of other people are. He works really closely with Josh. They handle a lot of that together. But I think Josh can sometimes have a hard time fronting in some of those situations because he's like detached enough from it. I'm not sure if that's exactly why, but I know it works really well with the two of them doing it together, so Josh can do a lot of the decision making and kind of guide what we're doing, and Raven can do it, if that makes sense. So especially if there are specific things that we need to do that will help the situation emotionally and or physically, because sometimes we'll be like stuck in a cycle of panicking and things like that, and we need to do things for our physical health and we're having trouble doing them, or there are things that we need to do that will help like remove the thing that's triggering panic. So being able to do those things is obviously really helpful. He's around the front a lot, like I said. I don't know how much, if at all, he will want to be directly on the channel. I don't really know that yet. Also, like I said, he doesn't front really for extended periods, at least that I've noticed so far, mostly just to handle those specific situations, like while they're happening, and really just at like the height of them, if that makes sense. Like he gets through that initial part, and then I think I or somebody else is usually fronting again by that point, or potentially it makes it easier for Josh to switch. But Josh also does most of his job from close but inside. He will switch and handle things, but nowhere near as often as Jayden and Michael before them would have. It's more like guiding usually me and keeping me focused and convincing me that things will actually help and kind of coaching me through it type thing. So that's the update on Joseph and the really quick introduction to Raven. In terms of Jayden's splits, you know a little bit because you know that Jayden was struggling a lot and we didn't really have any communication with them for a while or know what was going on for sure. I thought it was very likely they were going to split or fuse or go dormant or some combination of that. I knew they had been overworked for a very, very, very long time and had nowhere near enough time to be able to set aside to be a major trauma holder. And that's one of the things that we are starting to work on a lot with our system, is that our major trauma holders need to be able to do that as a job, not have so many other jobs that they it takes a lot of time and energy, and I think we did a lot of trying to avoid actually processing any of those things. There was a lot of avoidance stuff, and some of that we did like by intentionally overworking ourselves, and it's not something we can sustain anymore. And for most of us, it hasn't been for a long time, like since I started learning about the system around then, and there were points before then where we temporarily couldn't really do it anymore. We talked about some of those things in the video we made about the few times that we had major system changes. But it took longer for Jayden than a lot of other people in our system to start like really implementing that change, and they didn't really implement that change, which was the problem, and they couldn't sustain it anymore. They had so many jobs that needed their literal undivided attention, and it was not doable. It wasn't even remotely doable. And we got too comfortable thinking of them as so inherently reliable, and like that it was their job in a way to just be available for whatever situation might need them constantly all the time. They were on call for several different things just constantly, and there were a lot of things that nobody could do but them, and we knew they were reliable, and we knew a lot of their trauma responses were literally designed to make them able to handle situations as they came up, even if they were triggered, even if there were a million other things going on. they were kind of built for that job, but that didn't mean that they could do it forever, and they couldn't. I think that's why it made so much sense that one of the splits was Josh, who can do a lot of the front-facing jobs without being a trauma holder, without also having to deal with that whole side of it, and without also trying to do a lot of the inner world stuff. But that's mostly stuff you already know about that. The updates are going to be mostly pretty vague. I don't even know. I know a little bit more than I'm going to share. We're not sharing all the details, but I know that there are at least 2 other alters who split from Jayden. One is a trauma holder, and one seems to be a persecutor protector. We have very, very little contact or communication with either of them, and we're not sure if there are any more splits or if there will be more splits or any other changes like that. We think there might be a subsystem, and that there might have already been a subsystem, at least since Jayden has existed, since that fusion that formed Jayden, but maybe even before then. Because Jayden shared not that long before starting to have a lot of trouble and not really being around or doing any of those jobs anymore. When they started really struggling, very shortly before then, they had shared, as far as I know, for the first time with anybody, that they had a personal persecutor who didn't seem to be able to communicate with anybody else, which sounds like a subsystem to me, and Jayden thought it was possible that it was a subsystem, and that this other persecutor couldn't, like, front for the subsystem or interact with anybody else. And I know basically nothing else about that situation. As far as I know, that persecutor still exists, but I know next to nothing about them, and I don't know for sure if they still exist. They might have also split. They might have fused with that persecutor protector or with somebody else we don't even know about. We don't know. We also don't know if any of those alters, or any we don't know about, or any who might still split or whatever, will end up doing any of the more, especially internal communication related things that Jayden used to do that no one is currently capable of doing in our system. We still don't have anyone who can do most of those communication things. The closest we have are the Wolfpack, the gatekeeping subsystem, but there are a lot of things communication-wise that Jayden could do that none of them can do, that they relied on Jayden to do those communication things. And it has cut off a lot of alters from the rest of our system completely because they only had communication with Jayden. We can't check in on them at all, and they can't let us know if anything's going on, if they need anything. We don't know if any of them have split or fused or gone dormant or anything like that. We don't know. So it's making things harder for our gatekeepers. It's making things a lot harder for our internal protectors. And it's stressful. It's not something Josh can do. It's not something that should be, like, that shouldn't be Josh's job unless it's going to be instead of the front-facing stuff. Josh can't do it anyway. But even if he could, we should not have one alter doing both of those jobs. It's not sustainable. So that wouldn't have worked long term anyway, even if Josh could do it. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know if one of those altars we already know about will end up doing some of that, or if there's one we don't know about, or a new split from that, or a completely different existing altar who will end up being able to do that, or a completely separate split who will end up being able to do that, who like has nothing to do with Jayden's splits. We don't know. So that whole part is still essentially open-ended, and we don't know, like I said, if everything going on with those splits from Jayden is done, or if we know about all of it. I would be very surprised if any of them who we know about currently would ever end up on the channel. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Obviously, it's not impossible, but they currently are almost completely cut off from the rest of the system anyway, and as far as we can tell, don't have any interest in that. So, yeah, we'll see how much that might change over time, because if any of them are going to do any of that internal communication stuff, they would definitely need to be much less cut off than they currently are. So that would be interesting to see if the subsystem itself ends up being less cut off, or if someone else will split outside of the subsystem like Josh did to be able to do that. Or if, like I said, it ends up being somebody totally separate from that whole thing. Or if we don't have anyone who's able to do that for a while. We'll have to see. So that is an update. Oh, I didn't say anything about my hair. We dyed our hair. I did it all by myself. And I really like it. I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I hope you like it too. It was a multi-day process that we then flared up a little bit afterwards, but it was worth it, and it'll be really low maintenance because we can just maintain it with like color depositing conditioners and stuff for a long time, probably until our next significant haircut, and then we would do more like lightener on the bottom half-ish and want to redo it, but that would be a while from now. Like that might end up being something we do like annually. So yeah, we can just have it like this for a while, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm hoping it's gonna help me do some more filming and streaming and stuff, because I'm excited to show it off. And being happy about how something like that looks makes me more motivated to do stuff on camera, for sure. So yeah, we still have some ongoing health stuff. Our next procedure thing that we're doing is scheduled for the beginning of April, so we might have another little, hopefully a shorter recovery time for that than our last one, and we will have more after that. But yeah, keep that in mind for especially live stuff. I'm hoping to film some things in advance, and then I can work on editing and still get some videos up during that time, fingers crossed. But especially live streams, we'll probably have at least a few days to a couple weeks, depending on how that goes, recovery-wise. But thank you for all of your patience with us, and yeah, should have been doing a lot of that rambling on this end screen, but thank you again for your patience with us as we have health things and other general disability stuff going on, and when we aren't on top of all this. I have a cool new simpler end screen thing that I'm going to put on the bottom that I hope you like. I'm going to try to make these end cards a lot shorter, because I know it can be boring and very, very repetitive, especially for those of you who watch most or all of our videos. So check out all those things in the description if you haven't and you want to see what they're all about. We do still have a special going on for Patreon through the end of March, so check that out, especially while we have a special going, because you get an extra perk out of it. And we are going to be moving our streaming schedule around a little bit, so keep an eye on that. Trying to work around our sleep schedule a little better since the current timing hasn't been working out for us, so keep an eye on that as we change it around. Hopefully we'll get back on top of that too before the next procedure and once we are recovered from that one as well. So, as always, thank you for watching. Bye!